Nicholas Beckett tapped his fingers on the kitchen counter, his eyes fixed on the holographic contract floating in midair. The alien text glimmered, shifting and reforming into English, revealing an extensive list of terms and conditions for his new interstellar domestic assistant. "What am I getting into?" he muttered, running a hand through his salt and pepper hair. The doorbell rang suddenly, jolting him out of his thoughts. He glanced at his watch. Right on time. Straightening his shirt, he took a deep breath and walked to the door, his heart thudding with a mix of anticipation and nervousness. When the door slid open, Nicholas froze. Standing before him was the most captivating alien he had ever seen. Her skin was a shimmering, deep blue, glowing faintly in the sunlight. Her bright silver eyes met his with a steady, almost hypnotic gaze. "Mr. Beckett," she said, her voice smooth and melodic, carrying an accent unlike anything he had heard before. "I am Kiara, your new assistant." Realizing he was staring, Nicholas quickly regained his composure. "Yes, of course. Please, come in." As Kiara stepped inside, her movements were graceful, almost ethereal. A faint, exotic scent trailed behind her, something that reminded Nicholas of a storm mingled with alien blooms. He inhaled deeply, then silently scolded himself. "Stay professional." "I hope you'll find everything to your liking," he said, leading her through the apartment. "The kitchen is fully stocked, and your room is just down the hall." Kiara's silver eyes scanned her surroundings, her expression unreadable. "This is more than adequate. Thank you, Mr. Beckett." When they arrived at her room, an awkward pause lingered between them. Nicholas cleared his throat. "Well, I'll let you get settled. Dinner's at 7 if you'd like to join me." Kiara's lips curved into a faint smile. "I would like that." In the weeks that followed, Nicholas became increasingly aware of Kiara's presence. She moved through his home with an elegance that fascinated him, even when she performed simple tasks. He often caught himself watching her, dusting, cooking, or organizing, unable to look away from the way the light played on her iridescent blue skin. Kiara, for her part, adjusted to her new environment effortlessly. She worked efficiently and with remarkable attention to detail, yet there was an undeniable warmth beneath her professional demeanor. Occasionally, Nicholas would catch her humming an alien tune or moving to an unseen rhythm as she worked, only for her to stop abruptly when she noticed his gaze. One evening, as they shared dinner, Nicholas decided to break the growing silence between them. "So, Kiara," he began, attempting a casual tone, "what made you decide to work on Earth?" Kiara paused mid-bite, her silver eyes flicking up to meet his. For a moment, a mischievous glint danced in her gaze. "Would you believe me if I said it was for the food?" she replied, her tone light. Nicholas chuckled. "Not for a second." Kiara's smile widened, showing a trace of playfulness. "You're right, though I must admit Earth's cuisine is quite fascinating." She took another bite, savoring it theatrically, half her exaggerated enjoyment drawing an involuntary smile from Nicholas. Her tone softened as she continued. "The truth is, my world has rigid traditions. Working off-world is one of the few ways to find freedom." Nicholas leaned in slightly, curiosity piqued. "Freedom from what?" Her gaze dropped momentarily. "Expectations. Assigned roles. On my planet, everything is predetermined. Here." She hesitated, then looked up, her voice quieter. "Here, I can choose who I want to be." Her vulnerability struck a chord in Nicholas. For a brief moment, he wanted to reach across the table, but he stopped himself. "Well," he said softly, "I hope Earth gives you the freedom you're looking for." Kiara's eyes held his, a faint warmth in her expression. "So far, Mr. Beckett, it's exceeded my expectations." In the days that followed, the air between them seemed charged. Nicholas found himself making excuses to spend more time near Kiara, asking for her opinions on trivial matters, just to prolong their conversations. He noticed the subtle glances she sent his way when she thought he wasn't looking, and the faint blush that tinted her cheeks when their hands accidentally brushed. One afternoon, as Kiara dusted a shelf in the living room, Nicholas finally voiced a question that had been bothering him. "Kiara," he said, trying to sound nonchalant, "you mentioned traditions on your world. Are there rules about how employers and assistants interact?" Kiara paused, the feather duster still in her hands. Turning to face him, her expression was unreadable. "Why do you ask, Mr. Beckett?" Nicholas shifted, suddenly self-conscious. "Just curiosity. I want to make sure I'm not crossing any boundaries." A teasing smile tugged at the corners of Kiara's mouth. Afraid you might accidentally propose marriage by offering me a cup of coffee? Nicholas laughed, a mix of relief and amusement. Is that a possibility? Kiara's silver eyes sparkled with mirth. No, but watching you worry about it was worth the question. Her expression softened slightly, her gaze lingering for a moment longer than necessary. My people believe in clear boundaries between social classes. As an off-world worker, those boundaries are even more rigid. Nicholas nodded, trying to suppress the disappointment he felt. I understand. Well, I certainly don't want to make you uncomfortable. Kiara stepped closer, her voice dropping to a near whisper. What if I told you that sometimes, Mr. Beckett, comfort can be overrated? Before Nicholas could respond, Kiara turned back to her dusting, leaving him stunned and more than a little intrigued. Over the next few weeks, the tension between Nicholas and Kiara continued to grow. Their conversations were filled with double meanings and flirtatious undertones. Nicholas found it increasingly difficult to concentrate when Kiara was around. Her graceful movements, the sound of her laughter, the way her silver eyes seemed to look right through him. Kiara, for her part, seemed to struggle with her own feelings. Nicholas often caught her watching him with a mix of desire and frustration, as if caught in an internal conflict. One night, Nicholas came home late after a tiring day at work. As he entered the apartment, loosening his tie, he called out, Kiara, are you still awake? In the kitchen, Mr. Beckett, she replied. Nicholas made his way to the kitchen, where the smell of something delicious filled the air. Kiara stood at the counter, finishing a plate. As she turned toward him, Nicholas couldn't help but be struck by her exotic beauty. You didn't have to wait up for me, he said, suddenly aware of how unkempt he must look. Kiara smiled, making his heart race. I wanted to, she said. You work too hard, Mr. Beckett. You need someone to take care of you. The way she said it, low and intimate, sent a shiver down Nicholas's spine. Kiara, he began, unsure of what to say next. She moved closer, so close that he could feel the warmth of her body. Yes, Mr. Beckett. Nicholas swallowed hard. I think we need to talk about whatever this is between us. Kiara's silver eyes searched his face. Do we? I thought we were doing a pretty good job of avoiding it. Kiara, Nicholas said, his voice thick with emotion. I don't want to take advantage of you, your culture, your traditions, our distance. Kiara finished his thought for him. Here now, it's just us. Nicholas knew he should pull back, keep that professional distance, but Kiara's touch, her scent, the look in her eyes, it was all too overwhelming. He leaned in, drawn to her like a moth to a flame. Just as their lips were about to meet, a loud crash from the living room interrupted the moment. They jumped apart, both breathing heavily. I should go check on that, Kiara said, her voice shaky. Nicholas nodded, unable to speak. As Kiara hurried out of the kitchen, he leaned against the counter, his heart racing. What had he been thinking? This was dangerous territory for both of them. But as he replayed the moment in his mind, Nicholas couldn't bring himself to regret it. Whatever was happening between them was too powerful to ignore. The next morning, Nicholas woke up early, his mind still reeling from the events of the previous night. He decided to take a shower, hoping the hot water would clear his mind. Standing under the spray, his eyes closed, Nicholas heard the bathroom door open. Kiara? He called out, puzzled. There was no reply, but he could hear movement. Probably just came in to grab something, he thought, though a nervous excitement fluttered in his stomach. Nicholas finished his shower quickly, only to realize he had forgotten to bring a towel. Cursing softly, he cracked open the shower door. Kiara, are you still there? Can you hand me a towel? There was no answer. Sighing, Nicholas stepped out of the shower, water dripping from his body. As he turned toward the towel rack, he froze. Kiara stood in the doorway, her silver eyes wide with surprise. Her gaze traveled down his body, lingering in a way that made heat rush to Nicholas's face and other parts of his anatomy. I'm so sorry, Kiara stammered, but made no move to leave. I didn't realize you were... I heard the water, but I thought... Nicholas, acutely aware of his nakedness, reached for a towel. In his haste, he knocked the rack, sending towels scattering across the floor. Damn it, he muttered, bending down to pick them up. As he straightened up, he found... Kiara moved much closer than before, her blue skin now a deeper shade, her chest rising and falling with each rapid breath. Mr. Beckett, she whispered, her voice husky, the sound of his name slipping from her lips, breaking something deep inside him. Forgetting all professional boundaries, Nicholas reached out and pulled her to him. Kiara melted into him, her warm, alien touch seeping into his damp skin. Their lips met in a passionate kiss, months of desire igniting between them. Nicholas tangled his fingers in her soft hair, amazed at its silky texture. She ran her hands over his chest, sending fiery shivers through him with every touch. Suddenly, Kiara stiffened and pulled away, her silver eyes wide with a mix of longing and panic. "We can't," she gasped. "My people. The laws." Still dazed from the kiss, Nicholas struggled to focus. "Kiara, wait." But she was already stepping back, shaking her head. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. This can't happen." Before Nicholas could say anything more, Kiara hurried out of the bathroom, leaving him standing alone, confused and aroused. As he dressed, his mind raced. He knew he should feel guilty for what had happened, but all he could think about was the sensation of Kiara's lips on his and the softness of her skin. He had to talk to her, figure out where they stood. But when he stepped out of his room, the apartment was silent. "Kiara?" he called, but there was no answer. A knot of worry tightened in his stomach as he made his way to the kitchen. There, on the counter, he found a note written in Kiara's elegant handwriting. "Mr. Beckett, I must apologize for my inappropriate behavior. I have overstepped my boundaries and compromised the professionalism of our relationship. To correct this, I have contacted the agency to request a reassignment. Please understand, this decision reflects my own failure to maintain proper conduct, not anything about you. I wish you all the best. Sincerely, Kiara." Nicholas read the note twice, his heart sinking with every word. He couldn't let things end like this, not after experiencing what might be between them. Without thinking, he rushed to Kiara's room, hoping to catch her before she left. But when he opened the door, he found the room completely empty. Her belongings were gone, and the bed was neatly made, as if she had never been there. He leaned against the doorframe, a mixture of frustration and longing filling him. He had let Kiara slip away, all because of some alien cultural rule. But as he stood in the empty room, he made a decision. He wasn't going to let this be the end. Somehow, someway, he was going to find Kiara and make things right. No matter the obstacles, cultural differences, professional boundaries, or interstellar laws, they would face it together. Determined, Nicholas strode back to the kitchen. He had an interstellar agency to contact and a blue-skinned woman to win back. Nicholas paced the kitchen, phone in hand, his mind racing. He had called the Interstellar Employment Agency 3 times already, but each time he was met with the same frustrating response. "We cannot disclose personal information about our employees." Running a hand through his disheveled hair, he fought the urge to throw the phone. There had to be another way to find Kiara. He couldn't just let her vanish after everything that had happened. Then a thought struck him. The translator. All off-world workers were required to carry a universal translator. If he could track the device's signal... Nicholas rushed to his computer, his fingers flying over the holographic keyboard. He might not be able to locate Kiara directly, but if he could trace the signal of her translator, it could lead him to her. Hours passed as Nicholas worked, fueled by coffee and determination. Finally, as the first light of dawn began to peek through the windows, his computer pinged. "Got you," he murmured, a triumphant grin spreading across his face. The signal was coming from a small spaceport on the city's outskirts. Without hesitation, Nicholas grabbed his jacket and keys and rushed out the door. As he sped through early morning traffic, his mind raced with questions. What would he say when he found her? How could he convince her to stay? And why had she run in the first place? The spaceport came into view, a sprawling complex of shining metal and energy fields. Nicholas parked his car hastily, barely remembering to lock it, as he sprinted toward the main terminal. The spaceport buzzed with activity as aliens of every shape and size moved through the crowds, speaking in a mix of languages that created a chaotic din. Nicholas searched the crowd desperately, looking for the familiar flash of blue skin. Then he saw her. Kiara stood at a distant gate, facing away from him, handing her travel documents to a bored-looking official. Nicholas's heart raced. "Kiara!" he shouted, pushing his way through the crowd. "Kiara, wait!" She turned, her silver eyes widening in shock when she saw him. For a brief moment, they just stared at each other, the noise of the spaceport fading into the background. Mr. Beckett, Kiara said softly, barely above a whisper. What are you doing here? Nicholas rushed towards her, breathless. I couldn't let you leave like this, not without. He trailed off, unsure of how to finish his sentence. Kiara's face softened with a mix of longing and regret. Nicholas, we can't. You don't understand the consequences. Then help me understand, Nicholas begged. Talk to me, Kiara. Whatever it is, we can figure it out together. Kiara nervously glanced toward the gate and then back at him. I shouldn't. Please, Nicholas said, reaching for her hand. Just give me a chance to explain. Kiara paused for a moment, then nodded. All right, but not here. It's not safe. Nicholas felt a wave of relief mixed with concern. Not safe? What has she gotten herself into? They found a small, secluded cafe in a quiet corner of the spaceport. As they sat down, Nicholas couldn't help but notice how tense Kiara seemed, her eyes constantly scanning for potential danger. Kiara, he began, leaning closer. What's going on? Why did you run? She sighed, tracing patterns on the table with her fingers. It's complicated, Nicholas. There are things about me, about my past, that I haven't told you. Nicholas gently covered her hand with his own. Whatever it is, you can trust me. Kiara met his gaze, her silver eyes glistening with unshed tears. I'm not who you think I am. My real name, it's Princess Kiara Nar, heir to the celestial throne of Andromeda. Nicholas blinked, thinking he must have misheard. Wait, did you just say princess? Kiara nodded, a small, rueful smile playing on her lips. I'm the heir to an ancient royal lineage. I came to Earth to escape certain political pressures. Nicholas leaned back, his mind spinning. So when you said you came here for freedom, I meant freedom from assassination attempts and forced marriages, Kiara continued. My family's rule has been challenged lately. There are people who want me eliminated to prevent me from claiming the throne. Nicholas felt an overwhelming sense of protectiveness. Is that why you left? You thought you were putting me in danger? Kiara's expression softened. Partly, but also because, Nicholas, what we have, it can never be. The laws of my people forbid relationships outside our species, especially for royalty. If anyone found out. Hey, Nicholas said, squeezing her hand. We're on Earth now. Your laws don't apply here. Kiara shook her head. It's not that simple. My people have agents everywhere. If they found out about us, it could spark an interstellar incident. Or worse. Nicholas leaned in, his voice low and intense. Kiara, princess, whatever title you have, I don't care about interstellar politics or alien laws. I care about you, and I'm not letting you go without a fight. A spark of heat flickered in Kiara's eyes. Nicholas, you don't understand the danger. The danger is worth it, he interrupted. You're worth it. They sat in silence for a moment, the air between them charged with unspoken emotions. Then slowly, Kiara leaned forward. Their lips met in a kiss that sent sparks through Nicholas's body. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless, Kiara's eyes gleamed with a mix of fear and excitement. This is madness, she whispered. Nicholas smiled. The best kind. A commotion at the entrance of the cafe caught their attention. 3 tall, imposing figures had entered, scanning the room with predatory eyes. Kiara stiffened. Royal Guard, she hissed. They've found me. Nicholas's mind raced. Is there another way out? Kiara nodded toward a service door behind the kitchen. You should stay, Nicholas. This isn't your fight. He pulled her up firmly. Like hell it isn't. I'm not letting you face this alone. As they darted through the kitchen, dodging startled staff, Nicholas couldn't believe how quickly his life had changed. Just days ago, he'd been preoccupied with quarterly reports. Now, he was running for his life with an alien princess. They burst into a loading dock, the sound of pursuit echoing behind them. Kiara's eyes scanned the area for an escape. There, Nicholas pointed to a small shuttle being loaded with supplies. They sprinted toward it, hearts pounding. Just as they reached the shuttle, an energy blast scorched the ground at their feet. Halt! A booming voice commanded. By order of the Celestial Throne, surrender the princess. Nicholas turned to face the guards, weapons raised, and positioned himself in front of Kiara, shielding her. Nicholas, don't, Kiara warned, but he cut her off. I told you I won't let you go, he said firmly. She's not going anywhere unless she chooses to. You'll have to go through me first. The lead guard's eyes narrowed. So be it, Earth Dweller. As the guard raised his weapon, time seemed to slow. Nicholas braced for the blast, determined to protect Kiara at all costs. But instead, a blinding flash of light enveloped them, accompanied by a deafening roar. When the light cleared, they found themselves inside the shuttle, now soaring through the atmosphere. What? How? Nicholas stammered in confusion. Kiara was at the controls, her hands deftly working the alien interface. Emergency teleportation system, she explained, a hint of pride in her voice. A gift from my royal upbringing. Nicholas chuckled, the adrenaline still coursing through his veins. You're full of surprises, aren't you, princess? Kiara shot him a playful grin. You have no idea, Mr. Beckett. As the shuttle broke free from Earth's atmosphere, the vastness of space stretched out before them. Nicholas felt a surge of excitement. He didn't know where they were headed or what dangers lay in wait, but with Kiara by his side, he was ready for anything. He slid into the co-pilot seat. Where to now, Your Highness? Kiara's eyes sparkled with a mix of adventure and affection. How do you feel about a tour of the galaxy? I know a few places we could lay low for a while. The teasing tone in her voice made Nicholas's pulse quicken. I'm all yours, Princess. As they set their course for the unknown, Nicholas marveled at how swiftly his life had transformed, from a lonely engineer to a fugitive with an alien princess in just a few days. Despite the uncertainty ahead, he had never felt more alive. One thing was certain. His adventure with Kiara was just beginning. The shuttle surged forward, Earth shrinking behind them. Ahead, the cosmos stretched out, full of infinite possibilities and the promise of a love that transcended worlds. As they navigated the asteroid belt, Nicholas couldn't help but glance at Kiara. Her blue skin shimmered in the starlight, and her silver eyes were focused intently on the controls. He admired her poise and confidence, so different from the demure maid she had once appeared to be on Earth. You're staring, Kiara teased, a smirk tugging at her lips. Nicholas felt heat rush to Nicholas's face. Can you blame me? It's not every day I end up running off with an alien princess. Kiara's expression softened as she looked at him. I'm sorry for deceiving you, she said, her voice filled with regret. I never intended for any of this to happen. She reached out, gently placing her hand over his on the control panel. I'm not sorry, Nicholas replied. These past few weeks with you have been the most thrilling of my life. Kiara turned to him, her silver eyes studying his face. Despite the danger and uncertainty, Nicholas smiled. Especially because of it, he added. You've awakened something in me, Kiara, a sense of adventure I thought I'd lost long ago. Kiara's gaze dropped to his lips for a moment before returning to his eyes. The air between them felt charged with energy. Slowly, she leaned in, her lips meeting his in a kiss that sent a rush of electricity through Nicholas's body. When they broke apart, breathless, an alarm suddenly blared from the control panel. Kiara's eyes widened as she quickly scanned the readouts. What is it? Nicholas asked, his voice tinged with concern. Kiara's fingers flew across the controls. An Andromeda warship is closing in fast. They must have tracked our shuttle's energy signature. A knot of fear tightened in Nicholas's stomach. Can we outrun them? Kiara shook her head. Not in this ship, but I know a place where we can hide. She adjusted their course, sending the shuttle veering sharply to the left. Ahead, Nicholas saw a vast nebula, its swirling gases creating a mesmerizing display of colors. The Veiled Nebula, Kiara explained. Its energy signature should cloak us, but it's notoriously hard to navigate. Nicholas gripped the edges of his seat as the shuttle plunged into the nebula. Brilliant shades of purple, blue, and green engulfed them, and static crackled across the view screen as the nebula's energy interfered with their sensors. Hold on, Kiara warned, her face focused with concentration. The shuttle shuddered violently as they maneuvered through the swirling gases. Nicholas's stomach lurched as they narrowly avoided hidden asteroids and pockets of volatile energy. Just when he thought they couldn't take any more, they broke through into a calm area within the nebula. Kiara let out a sigh of relief, her shoulders relaxing a little. We should be safe here for now, she said, running a quick systems check. Nicholas exhaled deeply, realizing he had been holding his breath. That was intense. Kiara turned to him, a trace of worry in her eyes. I'm sorry, Nicholas. I never meant to pull you into all this danger. If you want, I can get you back to Earth safely. Nicholas reached over, cupping her face gently in his hand. Hey, I told you before. I'm not going anywhere. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together. Kiara leaned into his touch, her eyes shimmering with emotion. You don't know what you're getting yourself into. My world is filled with dangers you can't even imagine. Then teach me, Nicholas replied, his voice deep and sincere. Show me your world, Kiara, the good and the bad. They sat in silence for a moment, the ever-changing nebula colors casting moving patterns on their faces. Finally, Kiara smiled. All right, she said, a playful tone in her voice. But be warned, Mr. Beckett, once you step into my world, there's no going back. Nicholas grinned. I'm counting on it, Princess. As they waited to see if their pursuers would find them, Kiara began telling Nicholas about her home world. She spoke of floating crystal cities, ancient customs, and political intrigues. Nicholas was captivated as she described a world far beyond anything he could have imagined. But as she spoke of the conflicts that had driven her to flee, Nicholas could hear a sadness in her voice. He realized that, despite the wonders of her world, it had been more of a prison for her. Is that why you came to Earth? He asked gently. To escape all that pressure? Kiara nodded, her gaze distant. I thought if I could just experience a normal life, even for a short while, maybe I could find a way to bring some of that perspective back to my people. Nicholas took her hand, intertwining their fingers. And did you find what you were looking for? Kiara met his gaze, a soft smile on her lips. I found something I never expected, Nicholas. Someone who sees me for who I really am, not just my title. The intensity in her eyes made Nicholas's heart race. He leaned in, drawn to her like a moth to a flame. Their lips met in a kiss that started gently but deepened quickly, years of longing and newfound passion flooding through them. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, a new alert chimed from the control panel. Kiara's eyes widened as she checked the display. What is it? Nicholas asked, his voice tense with concern. Kiara's face was a mix of fear and determination. It's a message from my sister. She's staging a coup against our parents. Nicholas, I have to go back. My people need me. A knot of dread formed in Nicholas's stomach. He knew this moment would come eventually, but he hadn't expected it so soon. The thought of losing Kiara, of her returning to a world of danger and political strife, filled him with fear. But as he looked at her, seeing the determination in her silver eyes, he knew what he had to do. Then we go back, he said firmly. Together. Kiara's eyes widened in surprise. Nicholas, no. It's too dangerous. You don't know what you'd be walking into, Nicholas said, holding her hands tightly. His eyes were unwavering as he continued. I know the risks, Kiara, but I love you. I'm not letting you face this alone. Whatever happens, we'll face it together. Kiara hesitated, her emotions warring within her, but gradually a soft smile spread across her face. A smile filled with relief, gratitude, and love. Together, she murmured, her voice resolute. As the shuttle veered away from the protective embrace of the nebula and toward Kiara's homeworld, Nicholas felt a mix of anticipation and unease. The path ahead was uncertain, riddled with potential dangers, but with Kiara beside him, he felt ready to confront whatever the galaxy would throw at them. This was not the end of their adventure. It was just the beginning. When their shuttle finally approached the glittering crystalline skyline of Andromeda's capital, Nicholas could hardly breathe. The alien world stretched before him, dazzling in its beauty, yet haunting in its otherworldly intensity. Kiara reached for his hand, her silver eyes reflecting a blend of fear and determination. Are you ready? She asked, her voice barely audible. Nicholas forced a smile, masking his nerves. Ready as I'll ever be. Let's save your kingdom, princess. They touched down in a hidden courtyard, away from the palace's main entrances. As they stepped out, Nicholas couldn't help but marvel at the vibrant alien flora. The plants glowed softly, as if lit from within, and the air carried the gentle melody of chiming flowers. This way, Kiara said, urgency sharpening her tone. She led him to a concealed entrance. We need to reach the throne room before my sister finalizes her plans. The palace's corridors were a maze of twisting paths and shimmering crystal walls. Holographic displays broadcasted unrest throughout the kingdom, while alien servants scurried past, their eyes lingering curiously on Nicholas, the lone human in their midst. An alarm suddenly pierced the air, a shrill, jarring sound. Kiara muttered a curse in her native language, the sharp tones grating against Nicholas's ears. They know we're here, she whispered sharply. pulling him into an alcove just as a squad of guards thundered past. Turning to him, Kiara's voice was urgent. If we get separated, if something happens, you need to head straight back to the shuttle. Don't try to be a hero. Nicholas grasped her face gently, forcing her to meet his steady gaze. I'm not going anywhere without you. We're in this together, remember? For a fleeting moment, time seemed to pause, the chaotic palace fading to leave only the two of them. Kiara's resolve hardened as she nodded. They continued down the corridor, their pace quickening with every step. As they drew closer to the throne room, the noise of battle grew louder. Shouts, the sharp hum of energy weapons, and the crashing of debris echoed around them. Kiara stopped at the final turn, her body taut with tension. Nicholas, she said softly, her voice trembling with emotion. No matter what happens in there, I need you to know that I love you, and I'm grateful for everything we've shared. Before Nicholas could respond, Kiara stepped forward, radiating an aura of regal defiance. He followed, his heart racing. The throne room was a battlefield. Royal guards clashed with rebel forces, and stray energy blasts scorched the ornate crystal walls. At the center of the chaos stood Zara, Kiara's sister, her face twisted in anger as she wrestled with their father for control of the celestial scepter, the sacred symbol of Andromedan authority. Enough! Kiara's voice echoed through the chamber, magnified by unseen technology. The fighting stilled, and all eyes turned to her. Zara's gaze darkened. Well, well, the lost princess returns, she sneered, and with a pet human, no less. Nicholas stiffened at the insult, but Kiara's hand on his arm grounded him. This ends now, Zara. Though Kiara declared, stepping forward with authority. You've destroyed our kingdom for your selfish ambition. Zara laughed, the sound icy and sharp. Selfish? While you've been running off with your earthling lover, I've been preparing our people for the future. I'm the one who will lead them forward. In the battle for its rightful position in the galaxy, the two sisters faced each other, the air charged with tension and years of unspoken history. Nicholas stood by, feeling powerless as the rivalry and resentment between them unfolded before his eyes. How many will die for your future, Kiara? Zara asked, her voice cold. How many have already died? Kiara shot back. Zara's grip tightened on the scepter. Sacrifices must be made for progress, something you'd understand if you weren't so weak. With a fierce snarl, Zara raised the scepter, energy crackling at its tip. Nicholas reacted without thinking, throwing himself in front of Kiara just as a powerful blast of energy surged from the weapon. A searing pain tore through his body as the blast hit. He collapsed to the ground, barely aware of Kiara's anguished scream. Through his blurred vision, Nicholas saw Kiara kneeling beside him, her face a mixture of panic and grief. No, 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 she whispered, holding his head. Nicholas, stay with me, please. He tried to speak, to reassure her, but no words came. Darkness slowly crept in from the edges of his vision. Nicholas's final thought was of Kiara's smile. When Nicholas opened his eyes again, he was certain he must be dead. He drifted in a sea of swirling colors, reminiscent of the nebula they had hidden in. But gradually, his senses returned. The hum of machinery, the sterile scent of a medical bay. He's waking up, an unfamiliar voice said. Princess, you should be here for this. Nicholas blinked, his vision slowly clearing. He found himself inside a high-tech medical pod, surrounded by alien technology that he couldn't even begin to understand. And there, leaning over him, her silver eyes filled with tears, was Kiara. Welcome back, she whispered, a trembling smile on her lips. Nicholas tried to sit up, wincing at the pain in his chest. What happened? Kiara helped him sit up, her touch gentle. You almost died, you idiot, she said with a mix of affection and exasperation. If it weren't for our advanced medical technology, the memories flooded back. The throne room, Zara, the blast of energy. Nicholas's eyes widened in realization. The coup? Your sister is in custody, Kiara replied. Thanks to you, your sacrifice gave me the time I needed to subdue her. The rebellion has been crushed. Nicholas exhaled deeply, surprised by the weight he'd been holding in. So it's over. You've won. Kiara's expression became more complex. In a way, yes, but there's something we need to talk about. For the next hour, Kiara explained the political situation following Zara's attempted coup. The people had lost faith in the current system of rule and were calling for change, a new way forward. They want me to lead, Kiara said softly, to guide our world into a new era of cooperation with other species, including Earth. Nicholas felt his heart sink. He could already sense where this was headed. You have to stay, Kiara said, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. My people need me, Nicholas. I can't abandon them, not when I have the opportunity to create real change. Nicholas took her hand, forcing a smile despite the ache in his chest. I understand. You have a duty to your people. I won't stand in your way. Kiara's grip tightened on his hand. That's just it, Nicholas. I don't want you to step aside. I want you to stand by me. Nicholas blinked, certain he had misheard. Kiara took a deep breath. I'm asking you to stay, to rule alongside me, to be my partner in creating a new future for Andromeda and for us. For a moment, Nicholas was speechless. The enormity of what Kiara was asking hit him all at once, leaving Earth behind, becoming part of an alien royal family. But as he looked into Kiara's eyes, seeing the love and hope there, Nicholas realized the decision had already been made. From the moment he ran after her at the spaceport, his path had been set. Yes, he said simply, pulling her close. 1,000 times yes. The following months were a whirlwind. Nicholas immersed himself in learning about Andromedan culture, politics, and technology. There were moments of frustration and culture shock so intense he wondered if he'd made a terrible mistake, but Kiara was always there, guiding him, supporting him, loving him. Their wedding was a grand affair, broadcast across the galaxy as a symbol of a new era of interspecies cooperation. Nicholas stood proudly in a blend of Earth and Andromedan formal wear, his heart swelling as Kiara walked down the aisle, resplendent in crystals that seemed to capture the starlight. As they exchanged vows, Nicholas stumbled slightly over the alien words. But he didn't just see Kiara before him. He saw their future together, a future of understanding between worlds, breaking down barriers, and forging new connections. Years passed, bringing new challenges and joys. Nicholas and Kiara worked tirelessly to reform Andromedan society, opening their world to new ideas and alliances. It wasn't always easy, and there were those who resisted change, viewed Nicholas as an outsider, corrupting their beloved princess. Yet, together they overcame every challenge, and their love only deepened with each hurdle they faced. Then, 5 years after that pivotal day in the throne room, came their greatest adventure. Nicholas paced nervously outside the royal medical chamber, his thoughts racing. Inside, Kiara was giving birth to their first child, a child who would be the first of her kind, a symbol of unity between two worlds. After what seemed like an eternity, the door opened and a medical attendant with alien features smiled and gestured for him to come in. Nicholas stepped forward, his heart pounding. On a bed of glowing energy lay Kiara, cradling a small bundle wrapped in soft blankets. Nicholas, Kiara whispered, her voice filled with awe. Come meet your daughter. He walked closer, his breath catching as Kiara gently shifted the bundle towards him. The baby blinked up at him with eyes that shimmered with a blend of earth blue and Andromeda silver. Her skin, soft and lavender, was a perfect blend of her parents' features. As Nicholas carefully took his daughter into his arms, he felt a love so deep it nearly overwhelmed him. This tiny being represented everything he and Kiara had fought for. A future where the walls between their worlds could be broken down, and love could triumph over every obstacle. She's perfect, Nicholas whispered, his vision blurred by tears. What should we name her? Kiara smiled, caressing their daughter's cheek. I was thinking Aurora, as the dawn of a new era. Nicholas nodded, speechless, the emotion in his chest thickening. Aurora, a name that belonged to both Earth and the stars. As he stood there, holding his newborn daughter with Kiara by his side, Nicholas reflected on the incredible journey that had led him to this moment. From a lonely engineer on Earth to the co-ruler of an alien world, husband to a princess he adored, and now father to a child who symbolized the future they had dreamed of. The room around them was a fusion of human and Andromedan elements, crystal formations intertwined with earth plants and holographic displays showcasing scenes from both worlds. It was a tangible representation of the life Nicholas and Kiara had created together, a harmonious blend of two cultures that had once seemed impossibly distant. Aurora stirred in Nicholas's arms, her tiny hand reaching up to grasp his finger. When their eyes met across their daughter's head, Nicholas saw all the love and joy he felt reflected back at him. In that moment, He knew without a doubt that he was exactly where he was meant to be. The path that had led him here had been unexpected, filled with dangers and challenges he never could have imagined. But every single step, every obstacle, had been worth it for this family and for the future he and Kiara had built. As Aurora peacefully drifted off to sleep in his arms, Nicholas silently vowed to continue working alongside Kiara to bridge the divide between their worlds, that to nurture understanding and cooperation across the galaxy. And he promised to raise their daughter to embody the best qualities of both her cultures, a living symbol of what could be achieved when love transcended the boundaries of worlds. The adventure that had begun with an accidental encounter in his bedroom had taken Nicholas to the stars, to a love beyond imagination, and to a future brighter than anything he had ever dreamed. Surrounded by the family he had found among the stars, Nicholas knew that the greatest adventures were still ahead. In the vastness of the cosmos, with love as their guide, there were no limits to what they could accomplish together. Dear listeners, the story of Nicholas and Kiara is not just a fantastical tale of love between a human and an alien. It is a story about the power of emotions that can overcome any obstacle, whether those obstacles are interstellar distances, cultural differences, or political intrigues. Their journey teaches us that true love requires courage, the courage to be vulnerable, to take risks, and to step beyond what is familiar and comfortable. Nicholas left his ordinary life behind to follow Kiara into the unknown. Kiara found the strength to trust her heart despite the weight of tradition and obligation. This story also teaches us the importance of embracing differences. Nicholas and Kiara came from entirely separate worlds, yet they found common ground and built a bridge between their cultures. They show us that love can thrive in the most unexpected places if we are open to new experiences and willing to appreciate the beauty of diversity. Let this story inspire you to be braver in expressing your feelings, to not fear the unknown, and to always reach for the stars. Remember, each of us is capable of a love so great that it can change not only our lives, but entire worlds. After all, isn't that the essence of all great adventures? To find your place in the universe and the one person you wish to share this endless journey with.